Okay. Well, that is better. I just wanted to say that usually I'm here on the third Sunday, and but so I'm here on the second Sunday, and I'm so glad you're all here. Next Sunday, it's going to be very, very special. There's going to be a musical here, and I think you'd all want to come. And they're going to do the speaking. It's just going to be wonderful. Jeanette, you may know more about it than I do, but it's going to be very special, and I just highly recommend you all come. Well, today I'm going to tell you something very personal. Haven't shared this very much before, hardly at all actually, but 4 years ago, transformation comes sometimes with some very hard lessons. Have you ever noticed that? Well, yeah, you have. Okay. And have you ever noticed that there's sometimes dragons and scorpions in your head telling you, pronouncing that you're a victim of something? And some of you may have had those. What authorities have we accepted that we are serving? Some authority that you may have accepted that you may be serving it in some way, that it actually isn't that good for you. 4 years ago, I broke a bone in my foot over here, and I was given this big boot to wear, which kind of made me lopsided, so my back went out. So I took the boot off, and I decided it would heal by itself with God. So anyway, what happened after I just couldn't wear that boot? Man, it was just a dreadful idea. And then the doctor tells me, oh yeah, a lot of people who break their foot and wear the boot, their back goes out and they're in pain. So that doesn't sound like it's a good thing. Anyway, so I went back to the doctor a little later, and he said, well, you know, your foot is still broken. And what's going to be happening is, he said, unless this foot heals, your foot is going to eventually need surgery, and it's going to be swollen. And he gave me a dreadful picture. And he said, what's going to happen is that bone being broken is going to keep damaging your tissue. So I decided that I was just going to believe God to heal my foot. But then there's something interesting. Something kind of interesting happened. I had been to many healing practitioners in my life for different things, a healing practitioner for my kids, all kinds of things. And with a healing practitioner that I called said, oh, honey, bones, we don't really heal bones. You have to really go to the doctor. Teeth and bones, we don't heal. But everything else we can manage. I bought that. I bought the authority of the doctor. I bought the authority of this healing practitioner, that the only way you could possibly get a bone healed is through the doctor. And I didn't go, and this healing practitioner didn't handle it. She said, I actually don't know any healing practitioner that handles bones. They're kind of outside of the realm of healing. And so the last 2 years, so this was 4 years ago. So the last 2 years, it really started bothering me. And when it would bother me, I would be mesmerized into thinking that, oh my God, there's that broken, shattered piece of bone is just going right up against the tissue. This is why it's hurting. And I built the picture. You following me? Now, I have to tell you that I have a lot of faith, and people even call me for healing. I haven't had any healings for bones, thank goodness. Anyway, but I've always been really into knowing that I have faith and everything's just going to be healed. But my faith is because I had accepted the authority. 2 authorities I accepted. That's why I'm saying, what authority have you bought into that you're carrying it around for years? So anyway, I decided to go to a foot doctor and have them take an x-ray to see, I mean, maybe the bone was on its way to my heart. I had no idea. I didn't know what it was doing in there, but it was damaging my tissues, making my foot hurt, making it swollen. So what happened is, I go to this foot doctor, he takes all these x-rays, and then he said, he looked at the x-rays and he said, why are you here? I said, well, I told you last time I was here that I was here because I broke this bone and it hasn't healed. He said, where's the broken bone? I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, there's absolutely no broken bone here. And he said, it was right here, right? He said, look at it's beautifully healed. It's perfectly healed. Are you kidding me? What? I've been carrying these lies around with me forever with a broken bone that's just damaging my tissues. And he said, well, you've got a little arthritis in your big toe. And I said, that's never hurt. And then he said, well, this is, it's healed completely. You don't have any broken bones. I went out of there dancing. I am walking. There's no pain. I am so excited. Did I do something terrible over here? No, we're on Zoom. We don't want to say things like that. Anyway, so what happened is, I cannot even tell you, it awakened me to what other authorities have I've bought into. And you guys maybe don't realize this, but I am actually really good. I've given talks on, do not accept these authorities, right? And here I bought into it. And it was that practitioner that said, bones, you don't get healings from them. So anyway, I made an authority out of that doctor, I'll tell you that. But this other doctor I made an authority of, oh, wonderful. We are suggestible 100% of the time. Do you realize that? If we're not awake. If we're not awake 100% of the time, you're going to buy this, then you'll have lunch with someone. We're just suggestible. But we are meant to be awake. Our intention, our words, our thoughts, what are we holding in our consciousness? If we are holding anything like I was holding inside of mine, you're holding a conspiracy against yourself. It's not right. And that is what's damaging. But look at how my body cooperated with my authority. And look at how my body cooperated with my new authority, the doctor who said it was beautifully healed. He couldn't even see where it ever was broken. So there is an atomic power in our words that can heal, and they can resurrect the wounded soul. They can also do tremendous damage. Our words can. Maybe you remember, even as a child, you were given some words that you were never able to forget. And those words have lived inside of you. So I highly recommend that we realize that the power of our words give momentum to the transformation of our cells. The cellular structure of our body is operating, always waiting to operate from the truth. And so you can imagine how excited my cells were in my foot when I had this new reality come to me. And you guys never even knew I had anything wrong with my foot, because I keep things like that to myself, suffer quietly and put on a spiritual face so you think there's nothing wrong with me. Do any of you do that? Just once in a while. Anyway, words can deface and defile a building, and they can also defile and deface our body, this temple of God, the temple that God breathed life into. Our bodies believe everything we say and feel. Knowing that our words can shift energy, it behooves us to really, really be aware of the self-talk that is going on inside of us. What are we indulging in? What is the belief that we're carrying around with us? And because I'll tell you, whatever belief you have becomes crystallized into the lymph system, into the cells. The thymus gland is affected. So a wonderful healing nurse said this, oh my gosh, this nurse was so incredible. She worked for a long time as an emergency nurse, and then she worked in pediatrics. Finally, she opened up her own clinic. She said, man, I just could not take all the medicine anymore. And I knew that there was another way that people could get well. She said, God is life. And life is like a rushing river that flows through eternity. We are in that river, whether the body, whether we realize it or not. That river is always in us and it's around us, and it's a river of life. And she said, as we are in it, it flows through us and all around us. And as long as we allow it to flow, we enjoy the many benefits and the wonderful effects of this beautiful river of life. But it is the energy and strength of our wholeness, our very existence is this river of life. And sometimes, however, through ignorance or a willfulness, we choke off that river of life. We choke off that flow. The river is still flowing all around us, waiting to be recognized one more time. And its presence is wondrous. It is wondrous, but we get caught up in all kinds of beliefs, and someone comes over with a new one and we run with that. And, it's, but the river is filled with God's attributes. The river is filled with God's prosperity. And when we trade the river and we choke it off by all of our beliefs and anxieties and our fears and all the stuff that we believe, we are going to experience some suffering, because all of our wholeness and wellness actually comes from this beautiful river of life, which is the presence of God. So the thing that's interesting is that when we are, she explained, in all my years, this is so interesting, she said, in all my years of practicing medicine, I have seen in the last 30 years that a joyous heart is a happy immune system. And she said, eyes that focus on the beauty that is all around them, they will have vision. And she said, they will see the good in life. When you see the good in life, you're actually assisting your eyes. And that will be your inheritance from believing the truth instead of believing lies. And I can't stress enough the I am presence. And what are we saying I am to? Are we saying, well, I am, really, really having these terrible problems, and not only that, and then we talk about our kids, and so we get their I amness involved. But if we look through the eyes of hate or jealousy or judgment, even self-hate or self-condemnation, we will find the ugliness and the darkness that we feel is in our own heart. That is what makes us suffer. That literally blocks the flow of life energy, leaving us choking, wanting that presence of God. And what it's doing is it's actually just choking down our very life expansion. Charles Fillmore, he talks about a thought atmosphere. He said the surrounding mental climate created by each person in accordance with the character of his thinking, thoughts of negation build an antagonistic and a discordant atmosphere. Thoughts of love and prosperity, of health and faith create a harmonious atmosphere. And we all know that. That's kind of like the beginning metaphysics. But unless one awakens, the negative thought atmosphere will actually magnify it will magnify to unbearable proportions so that we will awaken. My friend Teresa came to see me recently, and she was relating an experience to me that she'd gone through that was a little similar to my experience. She said many years ago, she went to the doctor and she was told that there was a large cancerous mass on her breast. And she'd already gone through surgery 20 years ago for the other one. And she went home and she said, oh, no, 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 we are not going through this one again. I am not doing this. And she said, I realized this time that I had to actually handle this completely different. So she said, it came to me, I actually had to raise my vibration to the level of the solution and connect there. And she did. She found herself saying over and over again, I give true expression of God's love and healing in every cell of my body. I'll do that one again. I just love it. I give true expression of God's love and healing in every cell of my body. Oh, a month later, Teresa went back for an appointment. They were actually going to do surgery 2 weeks later. And she knew that something wonderful had happened because it just felt different. And sure enough, they took a sonogram and there was no mass. So what happened? It's kind of exciting, isn't it? That we can move our consciousness up to the solution. And when you move into that solution, you've actually moved into the kingdom of heaven. She said, I realized that one statement said with feeling, and that's the whole key, is saying it with feeling and gratitude, that actually changed the structure of my body, changed the structure of my cells, and it removed the air that was in my body. I love so much what the founder, Charles Fillmore, said. He said, you can have a well body, but you must begin to build it with your words. And instead of laying up weak and sick words in your body, begin now to speak words of strength and wholeness, and keep at it. Don't let down. And he said, do not look at what has been in your life before. Don't look at that diagnosis from a doctor that can tell you that it can only heal if you have surgery, if you don't wear the boot. But I said, keeping that doctor's diagnosis for my foot at my truth, that was my truth. That became my truth. And my body cooperated. Your body is only able to cooperate of what you know. Isn't that amazing? It just isn't like, oh yeah, but I've got this. Well, your body has believed everything you've been saying. Charles said, clear out of your mind all the rubbish and about disease, and you will find that it has no lodgement in you. I like the word lodgement. I don't want lodgement in me of anything that God didn't make. So the thought makes the body and determines the condition it's going to live in. Thoughts of health are living eternal things. And they are irresistible powers of almightiness to tone up the organism and bring us higher in consciousness. We are to be living in this beautiful state of harmony and capability. I love this. Look at, this is one of the greatest examples of wholeness. And it was taught to us by Jonathan Livingston Seagull. So he handled a crippled, he handled a crippled wing in his dear friend, Kirk Maynard Gull, who cried out, you do not understand. My wing, I can't even move my wing. Hear his words of defeat. He came right into the conclusion that, yeah, I can't move this wing. But Jonathan Livingston Seagull said with total conviction, Kirk Maynard Gull, you have freedom to be yourself, your true self, here, now. Nothing can stand in your way. It is the law of the great gull. You know that, the law that is. Are you saying I can fly? I say you're free, said Jonathan Livingston Seagull. As simply and as quickly as that, Kirk Maynard Gull spread his wings effortlessly and lifted into the dark air. And the flock was raised from sleep by his cries, his screams, as he screamed 500 feet up in the air, "I can fly. Listen to me, I can fly." Jonathan Livingston Seagull trained Fletcher, another wonderful seagull, to see his seagull students as great flyers. And although he tried to look properly severe at times, he did see his students. He began to be able to see his students as great flyers. And he loved what he saw. He did not just like these students, he loved them. He could not even help but see that they were great flyers, and they proved to be great flyers. So this was, they went beyond their limits. Do you like going beyond your limits? Any of you? So I know. This is a true story. A priest is talking to a little girl, and she looked up into his eyes and she said, "Oh, you're blind." And he said, "Well, you're not telling me anything that I didn't know." And the little girl was incredulous. "Oh, you've never seen yourself? You don't even know how beautiful you are?" And that he said, this caught the priest off guard. He'd never heard anything like this before. And he thought, "I'm beautiful." I mean, it was just like it flowered his consciousness. So we sometimes need others to recognize our identity, don't we? To recognize the truth of who we are and to accept. But are we going to accept our blindness? Or are we going to accept our beauty? Are we going to accept the attributes of God that are within us? I had a dear friend who was a school teacher, and she said, "I'll tell you something. I taught grade 1. And she said, every one of those students, I made sure, left ennobled and worthy." And she said, "I can see them in the streets today, and they're much older. They all have these amazing jobs." And she said, "They'll come up, they'll hug me, and they'll say, 'Thank you so much for seeing me, seeing me complete.'" And she had a way of doing that. She said, "My words were never condemning, and I never judged a child. You cannot do that to a 5 or 6-year-old. It can stay with them forever." I needed her as a teacher. I always knew that I was a great singer when I was 4 and 5. I mean, I just knew it. I knew that I just couldn't wait to sing, and I'd be here singing for all of you today. But this teacher, I was 6 years old, and I remember her name was Mrs. Rudolph. And Mrs. Rudolph, she said, "Well, you can come after school." She was teaching music. She said, "You come after school and we'll just see. You probably can't sing." And so I went after school and I did what she wanted me to do. And then she said, "Honey, you must not even think of singing. You're not a singer, honey, but you have a lot of other talents, I'm sure." But it has never discouraged me. Jeff sometimes hears me sing and goes in the other room. And, he sometimes has asked me not to. But anyway, see, our words carry 10% of the message, and the rest of it is the tone, the intention, that's the presence. It's your knowing of what you're talking about. So our words can be emotionally charged, but they can cause great pain. Have you ever had great pain from words spoken to you? I think we all have. Words can transform another when they meet. I love this statement. It came to me the other day because I realized words can transform another when they meet the truth that the being has been waiting to hear. Did you get that? That is so incredible. So when all of the beings out there in this world is waiting for recognition of who they are in Christ. Isn't that incredible? Whether you're in the store, whether you're going to Dairy Queen, wherever you are, your message inside is God is wanting you to recognize the wholeness in someone, the completeness in them, recognizing the light that they are. It says in John, it says that there is a light that lights everyone that comes into the world. Oh, you don't see it because you're busy with the appearance, maybe, right? That's what I've done. But When we awaken and we say, God, I want to recognize the truth, I want to recognize the light in this one, he gives us new eyes. See, the idea is we're to be able to change from physical sight to spiritual sight. We're actually meant to have spiritual senses, not physical sense. The physical senses lie to you. The physical senses are actually oftentimes living out of your belief systems. So our words can help someone come into the full realm of beingness, just our words, our smile, our presence. Words are alchemical pieces of life that actually lift and they magnify the soul. Many have been frightened in regards to COVID. You know, a wonderful nurse shared that if we stand and we stare at disease, gasping at its intensity and the power that it has to utterly devastate an entire town, and the hospitals are filled. And she was a nurse dealing with some of this, and she said, we are totally, it's like we're empowering it over all kinds of, we're giving it levels of life that maybe we don't need to. Does that make sense? We've given it the only power it has. Do you believe that? Well, it's a metaphysical teaching, so you might want to believe it. So anyway, we cannot hold images of disorder and disease and disrepair and confusion, imbalance and disharmony in our minds and produce wholeness and health. It is like trying to drive to Washington with a California map. It just doesn't work. So the images that we embrace, whether they're good or evil, become the words that we speak, that we start to have expectations of. And what happens is they move into our heart, they're moving into our soul, they're becoming a part of who we are. Have any of you ever heard of Clara Palmer? She was an incredible unity teacher back in the 1930s. And she said, an epidemic is the result of mass thought of disease. It is fear thoughts working in the minds of the people who have been educated from earliest childhood to believe in disease, which creates fearsome conditions. True, huh? So that's kind of what does. And then we turn on the news and the fearsome conditions are facing us again to come into whatever we're believing. So it's really nice when that happens and you don't give it power. Charles Fillmore said, disease viruses get created and named by the intellect of man, and they bear within themselves sufficient intelligence to answer to the name given to them, and they come when they're called. That kind of really struck me when I read that. Now, Myrtle Fillmore, and I'll listen to what she did. Look at the words that she spoke that lifted her up. She said, God's perfect idea in me is now building a perfect body. And she experienced tremendous pain. She experienced a lot of illness, but she began to realize that it was the words that she spoke and no longer coming into agreement with all of the symptoms and all that kind of thing. She felt like her words had to empower this body. And then she said, I am satisfied. Interesting enough, when you say an affirmation and then you'll say how it makes you feel, you just raised that vibration up probably 50%. It's amazing. I remember I often will think about how wonderful it is to feel whole and complete and loved by God. And then I'll say, and this makes me so joyous because I just add a feeling to it, because it does. She said, with these words, I could see we're in the threshold of a new heaven and a new earth, a new consciousness. She said, we are turning from the world of the outer and are coming into the wonderful place, which is called the secret place of the Most High. She said, it is here that you will come to know that I am that you are. the mighty God that you are, and you will realize that you absolutely lack nothing. When you speak words about hard times, you're sowing hard times into your life. And it is, I remember there was a lot of sowing of hard times with me growing up, and there were some real hard times. You know, they just get magnified. If a farmer sowed thistle seed and then complained that his field did not yield him wheat, it would say, we'd know this was a pretty foolish man. But if we wanted wheat, why don't we, why wouldn't we sow wheat? Begin to talk plenty, think plenty, just thank God for just all the time, just thank him, and thank him for that which you know belongs to you, and do that with feeling. It's powerful beyond imagination. I love this scripture. I think it's in Romans 10:17, and it says, God sees that which isn't as though it were, and that's what we're to do. Did you like that? That's a good scripture. So then God just starts sending us all kinds of wonderful things when we believe the truth and we stand on that truth, no matter what people are coming to us with all kinds of this and that. And now they're expecting a new thing that's going to be coming along, and it'll probably take up most of the planet. No, you stand firm. That's standing firm in your sovereignty, believe me. Do not say times are hard. These words are of a very low frequency and they affect the body, and they will tighten your purse strings until omnipotence is powerless to open it. The spiritual substance out of which visible wealth comes is never, ever, ever depleted. So we get on a fixed income. Stop saying that. You should just stop saying it. I know a dear, dear friend. She's a precious friend. I just love this woman. So let me tell you what happened. So her husband was very frugal with her and did not give her money or, it was really, really difficult for her. You know, she would do mending, anything she could do just to earn a little bit of extra money. So what happened is she thought, I've got to get out of this situation. This is an abusive situation. And she finally said, I am going to, really, really weird prayer. I don't know if you want to go with this one or not, but she said, I am going to pray that I'll win the lottery. So she prayed and prayed she'd win the lottery. A year went by and she didn't win the lottery. So she said, okay, I'll pray that he wins the lottery. So she began to pray that her husband would win the lottery. A week later, he did, and gave her $1 million. I don't even understand the principle of that. Maybe we can talk about it later. But anyway, she knew he was honest. That's one thing. So it is the nature of spiritual substance to give. We want to remember that. It has no choice because that's its nature. It's really nice when you know that it has no choice. It's its nature. So you're doing it a favor by knowing that that's what it's all about. She said the most important thing is to lift your consciousness above the things of the material world and keep them in the spiritual realm. It's kind of tempting, though, to listen to all the stuff that's going on, right? It's kind of tempting and gets our adrenaline going. Anyway, but that's not where we're to be living. We are to be living in the elixirs of this higher consciousness of heaven. It's above personality and human limitations, and we want to unfold our Christ consciousness. The follower of Jesus Christ should keep his attention upon universal truth, thinking habitually about people with their actions, what they're doing, their sicknesses and their human limitations, and what they're doing and what they're going to do to us if we let them continue, binds us to a very personal consciousness and not an expanded one. To do the great works that Jesus promised, one must raise his consciousness to the place where he's able to see the perfect image and likeness of God in all people. Remember what we said earlier, there's people who are waiting for this. Charles Fillmore said, one is quickened with spiritual faith his word is endowed with power. When his word is quickened with spiritual faith, his words are endowed with power and it becomes charged with spiritual energy, and he's enabled to heal all manner of diseases, even at a distance. And I say, until we awaken to the words that we're thinking, feeling, and saying, can we really move into limitless, boundless expansion? I do not think so. I think that if we have a lot of stuff going on here, that's what's going to get it expanded. Do you believe that? That will be expanded, not the fruits of the spirit that want to be expanded. Are we recycling old data of what someone did to me? And are we depending on our 5 physical senses to give us accurate information? The greatest transformation comes from remembering and recognition and realization. We want to remember who we are. We want to remember our identity and live in that identity and not have any other gods before us. Any other identities will not serve us. We want to go with the identity God's given us. And we want to recognize that we want to recognize the highest truth in another. And we want to live in the realizations that come from above. When Jesus said, I am the resurrection and life, those were words that are magnetized to the highest realms of heaven. I am the resurrection and the life. It is for every single one of us that he said that statement. I have known people who have said that over and over and over again to themselves. I am the resurrection and life. And they have experienced healing in their consciousness, healing in their life, healing in their finances. It's one of the most powerful, powerful statements you can say. I am within us to accept the new resurrected life. That I am within us is always waiting for us to come in to that resurrected life, so it can expand its own nature in us. Through that resurrection of life, one becomes an inhabitant here and now of the new heaven and the new earth. This is not a future idea or promise. It is Christ who abolished death, has brought life and immortality to light in our consciousness. And his body was resurrected through the I am dwelling in him. And this resurrection life and power is an established reality waiting for us to come in to the knowledge of it, waiting for us to come into the truth of it with feeling. And we can acknowledge it, we can be grateful for it, and we will experience the most transforming life imaginable of love and wholeness and wisdom and mercy and forgiveness with this resurrection life. Because you see, without the resurrection life, we can't do any of that. It's this resurrection life in us that transforms us. So let's today be that resurrection for you. From that, we're going to move from the old concepts, from all the old authorities that you've ever bought into. And today we just want to, maybe you could just close your eyes and we could just think about this for a moment. Let's just let go, let go. Maybe a few things will come into your consciousness right now, the authorities you bought into. One is you're not good enough. That's always one that you can dredge up perhaps from the past. We're going to let that one go because the resurrected life needs us to let it go. And all the old authorities that doctors who've said this and have laid this upon you or that upon you, let's let the authorities go, because there's a higher authority now that wants to come forth into our lives. And we're all moving from the false to the truth. And I know that if you'll just say for 1 week, I am the resurrection and the life. And when you say life, you're actually saying the abundant life. I mean, just Jesus didn't come and say, and the life, meaning the puny life or the life that is depleted. This is an abundant life like you maybe never have known. And he said, Jesus knew this truth for us, that if we would say that I am the resurrection and the life, think about that. I am that you are is waiting, has been waiting to hear these words. Many people have experienced miracles with this statement. Jesus identified himself with I and the Father are one, and that one is the I am that I am. He portrayed the way out of exile into reality, out of falsity into truth, out of bondage into freedom and light. So let us just be still and feel this river of life washing through us. It's all around us. It's streaming the resurrected life into our awareness. That's beautiful. Just feel this river of life just washing you of any feeling that you're not good enough, washing you of concepts and beliefs right now. And then oh, this little water fountain is just yelling over there. Yes, remember the river of life that's in you. It's around you. It's through you. This river of life that wants to give you more than you may have ever realized in your whole life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you so much, all of you. Do any of you have anything you want to share or questions? Thank you. Anybody? No? No? Okay. You, well, yeah, you do actually. She had something going on, and I said, well, I have a book. She knew she shouldn't use it. Yes. Anybody else? Thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you.